Hey there, Nation. Welcome to the show where we show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and welcome back to another edition of Tales from the Underhive. Necromunda Battle Report number 5. This one is a gang fight scenario between myself, Commander CheapSkate of the Jury, with my House Cawdor gang, versus Fresh Prince Bel-Air of the Iron Sights, with his House Orlock gang. So this one is going to be for the championship. Both of our gangs have the most wins in the battle report, so now we're going to duke it out in our campaign to see which of these gangs reign supreme. Alright, so let's start off with the Iron Sights, the House Orlock gang. Leading them is the Toe Cutter. He is armed with a one in a million bolt gun, a bolt pistol, sword, as well as flak armor. Next comes his three heavies, Bubba's and Nettie, who's armed with a flamer and a stub gun, the Knight Rider, who is a heavy stubber, has a stub gun, and No Face, who is also armed with a flamer and a stub gun. After that, we have three gangers, Mudguts, he's armed with a shotgun and crack grenades, Starbuck, who's armed with a hunting rifle telescopic sight, twin bolt guns with the gunfighter rule and marksman rule, as well as Diabando, who's armed with a last gun and sword and frag grenades, and Kundalini, who's armed with both an axe as well as last pistol and packing frag grenades. And then rounding out his army, he's got two Juves, the Clunk, who's armed with a stub gun with dum-dum bullets, he's got the deflect skill and rapid fire skill, and Johnny the Boy, who's armed with auto pistol as well as frag grenades. And his gang rating comes to 1,669 points. Alright, so let's talk about the Jury of my House Cawdor gang. First, to start with our leader, his name is Riptor. He's armed with a chainsword, auto gun, bolt pistol, bolt gun, and also armed with mesh armor. Next comes my heavy. His name is Stubber. He's armed with a heavy stub gun, auto pistol, blind snake pouch, and a last gun. Next comes my gangers. Lemonhead. He's armed with a last gun, infrared goggles, and true grit. Zero, who's a last gun operator with a hand injury, and finally Scorpion, who's also armed with a last gun. Next comes two more gangers. Mondo. He's armed with auto gun. He was also suffering a head wound, and in this battle report, he rolled for frenzy for that special rule. And after him comes DJ, who's also armed with an auto gun. And rounding up my gangers, we have Darkside. He's armed with a shotgun with solid slugs as well as scatter shot, and he's equipped with frag grenades. And then finally, the last part of my gang is four different Jews. We have VR. He's armed with dual auto pistols. He's got an old battle wound. He rolled able to fight for this battle report, so that's good, as well as nerves of steel. After him comes Johnny. He's armed with a stub gun, dum-dum bullets, maul, as well as horrible scars. And next we have Tetsuo. He's armed with a stun gun, dum-dum bullets, sword, nerves of steel, as well as counterattack. And then my last Juve is Reptile. He's armed with a stun gun with dum-dum bullets, as well as a sword. And my gang rating for this one is 1,665 points. Alright, so here's the battlefield that we're fighting on. This is our deployment phase. As you can see, we have a large collection of buildings in the city block, as well as some walls, as well as some craters filling up the streets as well. And we also are fighting in the areas right beneath the freeway. So that part's kind of cool. So let's go ahead and zoom into the individual deployment zones. Alright, so deploying for the Jury is actually pretty simple. I deployed on the near side of the board, and my gang members, all 6 of them, are deployed on either side of Alexander's department store. As you can see on the right hand side, I got Darkside with Mondo and DJ, and the left hand side I got Riptor with Johnny as well as Stubber. The rest of my gang members are waiting to be deployed using the vents as well as tunnel special rules. And my plan is pretty simple. I plan on using Johnny, Riptor, as well as Stubber to put down some suppressive fire from the Alexander's department store, as well as a certain portion of the board and keep my enemy pinned, and then flank them with Mondo, DJ, as well as Darkside. While the rest of my gang members, when they deploy, they'll put them on the ground as well as elevated positions to take up sniping positions as well as flanking positions. So that is deployment for my gang on this battle report. Fresh Prince Bel-Air deployed his gang on the other side of the board on opposite ends with the West Super Red, and basically divided up his gang in half, splitting between both sides of the West Super Red here. As you can see here in this picture, he got one of his heavies, who's No Face, as well as his shotgun building ganger, whose name is Mudguts. After him, I believe, is two Jews, Clunk as well as Johnny the Boy. And they make up here on the left-hand side of the West Super Red. And the rest of his gang is upon the right-hand side of the West Super Red. As you can see, you have the Toe Cutter as well as the Knight Rider. He also has one of his gangers as well. That guy is Starbuck, Kundalini, as well as Diabando as well. And inside the building on the right-hand side, he's got his heavy, the Knight Rider, who's armed with his heavy stubber, as well as that sniper Starbuck, which we're pretty scared of. He deployed inside that building, and I think what he's going to do is probably run those guys up to the upper levels of that office building so that they can take sniper positions and open up my gang. So with deployment over, we go to turn number 1. Alright, this is the top of turn number 1 for the Jury after movement. As you can see there, I basically deployed my 3 guys on the left-hand side of Alexander's department store. I ran Johnny all the way down to that major gap right there on the wall so that we can start putting some suppressive fire in case Fresh Prince Bel-Air decides to set his gangers right down that straightaway underneath the left-hand side of the Precinct 13 police station. I put Riptor and kind of tucked him on the right-hand side of that wall so that we can put some suppressive fire heading down that main straightway as well. And I moved Stubber into the building of Alexander's department store. I'm planning on actually having him put down some suppressive fire through that door door on the first level. I could put him up on the second floor for him to shoot to the front of the department store as well, so I got a lot of options for that guy. So that's moving on this side of the board. And the right-hand side here, on the other side of the Alexander's apartment store, I put DJ, Dark Side, as well as Mondo, and I ran them up the full 8 inches as quick as they possibly could to get some cover behind that overpass balancing beam, so that way they can take care from any fire there, and at the same time I can start making that flank up there on the right-hand flank of my enemy. So yeah, that's moving for this one, and with that, move on directly to the shooting phase. I apologize, there is no shooting phase. That's right, there's no shooting going on during this time period because I had nothing within range. So there's no close combat, no recovery really, and then it ended up being my guys being deployed. So as you can see here, on the roof of the Precinct 13 police station, I dropped my 3 last gun-wielding gangers. I got Scorpion, Lemonhead, as well as Zero up in the top part. That gives them kind of full access to start raining down some sniper fire to my enemy's position on the center of the board. So that's where those guys ended up. And with the tunnel special rule, I deploy my 3 Jubes there on the left-hand side of the board next to that chemical station, next to the MCI chemical work station there. I have VRs kind of tucked into that corner there. And on the right-hand side, you really can't see it too well, that tank. I apologize for that part. You have Tetsuo on the right-hand side there, on the far right-hand side along the wall of the office building, heading straight to where the deployment zone of more of my enemies located at. That's Reptile. So basically, you can see that I got kind of like him in a full envelope now with sniper fire from the top, and we're about to bring the beat down for these guys. So that being said, we go to bottom turn number 1 after movement forward, the House Orlock with the iron sights. Alright, so here's the bottom turn number 1 after the movement phase for the iron sights. As you can see here, he put both the Knight Rider as well as his Sniper Starbuck. He ran them up those different levels, so he spent the entire movement phase moving up to the very top floor of that office building. Unfortunately for me, actually, he spent that time running, so he couldn't really shoot at my guys who are coming up on the left-hand flank, so I'm kind of lucky there. But at the same time, this position does prove to be a significant threat. Once his turn comes back up again, that heavy can shoot through those windows at my 3 advancing gangers on the left-hand side, and at the same time he's got a Sniper Starbuck looking at that window. He can start taking shots at both my gangers at the top of the police station as well as my Jews near the MCI chemical works, so pretty brutal on that part. As you can see in this picture, he moves the rest of his gang inside on the left-hand side into the first floor of the building, so that way he can start taking cover and also putting some pressure through those windows and start shooting at people. On the left there, you got the toe cutter, that's his leader. After that, you have Diabando, that's the gang who's armed with the sword there. Right in the middle there is Bubba Zanetti. On the far right-hand side, you have Kundalini, who's armed with the axe as well as the last pistol. So, like I said, it's kind of a bad situation for me because once those guys into those positions, they can start putting out fire through those windows right directly at my guys. Luckily for me, however, he ran these guys into the building, so because of that, they won't really get a chance to shoot at me this turn, but that's the only small blessing I'll be getting here soon. And on the far right-hand side there, Fresh Prince Bel-Air, he runs up Clunk as well as Johnny the Boy, his 2 Jews, to take a covering position behind that rubble so that way he can start shooting next turn at my Jews who popped up on the right-hand side. He also moves up No Face's Flamer to the corner there so that way he can turn around the corner and start blasting guys with flamethrower. And right behind him, he has Mud Guts with his shotgun to basically provide support. So, like I said, my opponent's got some pretty good maneuvering situations here. My guy is a little spread out too thin, which is kind of scary for me. I didn't realize that at the point, but, you know, that's the reason why the Iron Starts are like the best gang so far, doing the best so far in this campaign. So Fresh Prince Bel-Air is about to be the praying next turn. So with that being done, we move on to the next phase of turn number 1. And with that, we go directly to the shooting phase. Like you can see in this picture, the camera image is a lot brighter. That's because I decided to use the flash on my camera. I didn't realize that, but we didn't realize that when we put the overpass, right smack dab in the middle of the table, that was going to cause a shadow from the light from above us from the room from shining down on the entire battlefield. So it put the entire thing in shadow. At the time, I thought that the overpass would look cool. So when I put that turn on there, I was like, this would look bamf. But my buddy's like, you idiot, now your pictures are coming out pretty bad. So Fresh Prince Bel-Air said, turn the flash on your camera and start using them. So that's exactly what I started doing here. So anyways, we go to the shooting phase here. Mudguts opens up with a shotgun with scatter shot. Luckily for me, he misses his shot, but because VR is being shot at now, and he survived it, he's now effectively pinned, so that's why he's got that yellow dice right there, even though he's standing up. Basically, he has to take a leadership test for him to be able to move within 2 inches of another gang member, so pretty lucky at that part. So with shooting over, there's no close combat and no recovery, so we go directly to top of turn number 2. Alright, so now we start with the top of turn 2 after movement for the jury. As you can see, there has been some movement on my end. As you can see on the left-hand side, I sprinted Johnny again, made him run another 8 inches around the outside of that wall towards that crater there in the front of the MCI chemical buildings. I'm sending him out there so that we could put some support for my Jews who are now going to be cornered in that intersection by the iron sight, so that's kind of rough. As you can see there with Riptor, I kind of moved into that little gap there in the middle of the wall, so that way you can start putting up some suppressive fire right down that straightaway towards those 2 Jews on the iron side to the other side of that rubble pile, so that's where we're going to be shooting from there. As you see on the right hand side there, I put Stubber up to the second floor. That way you can shoot that opening and start hitting that, putting some pressure onto that office building across from the overpass, so that way you can start taking out both the Knight Rider as well as Starbuck if the opportunity arises. Here's a close-up of Johnny trying to get to the MCI Chemical Works as fast as he can to help out his brothers in arms. And there's a close-up of Riptor taking aim with his bolt gun right down to that gap in order to put some suppressive fire down the length of that street. Alright, here's a close-up of Stubber taking up his position on the second floor of the Alexander's department store, aiming his Stubber right through that opening there in the front of the building to start putting some suppressive fire on the office building across the way. On the far right hand side of the battlefield, as you can see here, I just basically moved up my 3-man fire team there. I ran Darkseid up 8 inches along the causeway because he needs to get in closer range because he's armed with a shotgun, so that's not really good far range on that guy. So I got to get in close and personal as quickly as he can so that we can start throwing some frag grenades. And right behind him, I got Mondo and DJ. Instead of moving them up the full 8 inches, I only moved them up 4 inches, so that way they could also start putting down some suppressive fire and start opening up on that office building. So yeah, that makes it move on this side of the board. Not much is taking place on the top of Precinct 13. As you can see there, I still have Sub-Zero, Scorpion, as well as Limited Head kind of maintain their positions that way they can open up fire on the office building, as well as putting some fire down on either side of the West Super Ret, which is located there on the other side of the board there. So those guys are pretty much staying put because they're my snipers. And there has been some movement here on the other side here with my Jews. As you can see, I kind of move them up as quickly as possible, move about 4 inches, so that they can start taking shots at the enemy. Luckily for me, VR passed his pinning check because he was within 2 inches of Tetsuo. So because of that, he takes some cover beneath the support beam there of the overpass and starts putting some suppressive fire there. I move Tetsuo and Reptile up as well in order to start engaging the targets. So that way, if I'm lucky, if they can survive this round of shooting, they can charge the close combat and deal with the rival gangs. So with moving out of the way, we go directly into the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, a freaking miracle occurs during the shooting phase. Stubber takes aim with his heavy stubber. He rolls his 2 sustained fire dice. He gets 5 shots. He opens up right across the under the overpass, right through the window, right into the dead center portion of the Knight Rider, and manages to hit him twice and actually wound him twice, which is pretty freaking amazing. I needed to roll a 5 or a 6 in order to do that. I rolled a 5 and a 6. Luckily for me, I passed my ammo roll, so Stubber's heavy stubber is still working, so I nailed that guy and dropped him to the ground. Unfortunately for my opponent, however, he's got to take a initiative test to see if he falls off the ledge. My opponent fails his initiative test, and he falls down and takes another strength 4 hit by hitting the next level, strength 3 hit when he hits the second floor on the next level. And because he's within an inch of the other edge as well, he's got to take another initiative test. And the Knight Rider fails that test and falls again and takes another strength 3 hit as well. And that's right smack dab behind the rest of his gang members. That was freaking amazing. That guy took like 5 wounds for being shot off and falling down the levels and falling, eventually hitting the ground level as well. So that was pretty freaking amazing. I thought that was just awesome. It was just hilarious. The guy was up there, he's like, bam, bam, bam. He's like, oh, boom, hits the ground. Oh, hits the ground again. And yeah, it was just, it was just good times. Unfortunately for me, however, he did not go out of action, but at the same time, luckily for me, he did not take a flesh wound either. He took my opponent, freshman player, took his 5 dice, he rolled him, he got a handful of 2s, a couple of 3s, I think a 4. And so because of that, he is just out is what he is. He's not out of action. He's just down for right now, so the guy is still alive. That's why I put the yellow dice right next to him. Unfortunately for my opponent, though, because this guy got shot next to Starbuck had to take a break test, and he failed it. So now he's hiding in the corner, and he's broken at that point. And because this guy also fell behind his peers right behind them, then saw the injury, all members of his gang had to take a panic test real quick. The toe cutter, their leader, failed his, so now he's diving behind that wall to take cover because he's afraid. Kundalini also fails his break test too, so he starts going to the far side of the corner. And the only 2 guys who are standing there are Bubba Zanetti the Flamer, as well as I'm sorry, Bubba Zanetti, as well as Diabando. No, that's not Diabando. Kundalini. That's right. That's right. He's the guy who's armed with a sword, and so he's basically saying, no, sorry, that's Kundalini. Diabando. Sorry, my opponent's got some really weird names for his guys. So, anyways. Those gangers are staying there. So my opponent's entire left-hand flank is now pretty much falling apart because of one guy got shot off the third floor of an office building, which was pretty epic. Unfortunately for Fresh Prince Bel-Air, both Mondo and DJ open up on Diabando, the ganger who's armed with both a lascan as well as a sword. They both take the shots at the guy. DJ misses, but Mondo does not manage to put a wound onto that guy and drop him. Unfortunately for me, he did not go of action. He's just down for right now. But because he got shot right next to the Flamer, what's the guy who's armed with the Flamer, Bubba Zanetti, he has to take a break test and he fails it. He gets within an inch of the table edge, so he's like 1 inch away from fleeing off the board, which is also awesome as well. So now my opponent's entire left-hand flank, either they are broken or they are down, which is pretty good for me. So luckily for me, those shots kind of worked out. With the right-hand flank of the guys in the office building taken care of, my 3 snipers on top of the building, they open up on those 2 Jews behind the rubble pile. Luckily for me, Lemonhead as well as Scorpion managed to inflict their wounds. Scorpion took out Johnny the Boy and dropped him, while Lemonhead took out Clunk as well and dropped him as well. Luckily for my opponent, I did not roll 6s, so those guys are just down for right now. That's why they got the yellow dice right next to them. But at the same time, though, it's kind of nice because now BR has an opportunity to charge at them on the next turn that I have popping up. If those guys don't get back down again, he can charge at them in hand-to-hand combat and then just take them out as his leisure, or basically just, take them out and shoot him and try to get him out of action it that way as well. So very, very lucky right there. So those 2 Jews are now down. Alright, Tetsuo as well as Reptile take their stub guns and open up on No Face, which is the flamer heavy that's located right in the corner of the building. Unfortunately for those 2 Jews, they missed their shots. However, he is now effectively pinned. So even though he's vertical, we put a yellow die next to the guy to represent the fact that that guy is now pinned, so he has to take a leadership test during his movement phase to see if he actually gets his nerve back and actually try to escape. So after a very successful round of shooting, there is no close combat or recovery for my turn, so that ends the top of turn number 2 for the jury. Alright, so here's the bottom of turn number 2 after movement. Unfortunately for my opponent, No Face, the heavy, fails his pinning check, so because of that, he's still stuck at the corner of the building getting shot at. So Mud gets the shotgun wielding ganger, gets the opportunity to basically run out there. He runs around the corner of the West Super Red and basically just takes cover within the walls of that grocery store in order to avoid being shot to death or possibly charged by my Jews, or being shot at from across the street at the top of the Precinct 13 from my snipers. So luckily for him, he made it there and he's pretty much safe for that part. Alright, since the rest of my opponent's gang is either down, broken, or pinned, he doesn't have any shooting phase as well as close combat phase, so because of that we go straight into the recovery phase. As you see here in the left hand in this building, the office building there, everyone regains their nerves. Starbuck, the Toe Cutter, as well as Bubba Zanetti, and Kundalini regain their nerve as well. The Knight Rider also gets a flesh wound, so he stands back up and he's ready to pack on some more iron with his heavy stubber, but he's got -1 ballista skill as well as -1 to his weapon skill. Unfortunately for my opponent, Diabando did not make it, however. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air rolled a 6 for Diabando, so Diabando is now out of action, so chalk up 1 for the jury. First gang member is down. If I can get another 2 more guys, now that he's gone, if any more gang members remain laying down or get out of action, my opponent has to start taking bottle tests, so that'd be very, very important as the battle continues onward. As you can see in this photo, both Clunk and John the Boy, my opponent's 2 Jews, are still down on the ground. So because of that, my opponent has to start taking bottle tests during this round. Luckily he passes bottle tests, so the iron sights aren't going anywhere. But right now, my opponent is basically sweating bullets because almost a third of his guys are now out or down or out of action. So he's got to start worrying because the next guy he takes a hit on, he'll have to take an additional bottle test on. So with that being said, we move on to turn number 3 for this one. Alright, so here's the top of turn number 3 after movement. As you can see there for the jury, I don't really have any clean shots for most of my guys, so not much moves going on. So what I decided to do is put a lot of my guys into Overwatch. As you can see, I got my little yellow Overwatch token there. As you can see on the left-hand side, Johnny, my Juve, runs up to the corner of the MCI building there on the left-hand side. And also you can see there's some movement going on the right-hand side with Mondo and DJ, as well as Darkseid approaching the interior of that office building, ready to put the smackdown. I put Riptor on Overwatch, that way he can put some suppressive fire down that straightaway underneath the freeway, right to the other building where the Parkway apartments are located at if he has to. And I also put Stubber on Overwatch as well, so that way he can deal with both Starbuck or the Knight Rider if he decides to go up to one of the extra levels and get shot out through the window again. So that's moving on this side of the board. Here's a close-up of both Riptor as well as Stubborn taking Overwatch positions. That way, at any time during my opponent's move phase, they can actually open fire. They suffer a -1 ballistic skill to do it, but you know what? Small price to pay to keep these guys on suppression watch. Here's a close-up of Johnny moving up to the MCI Chemical Works to help out VR as well as the other Jews deal with the iron sights in that intersection there. And here's a close-up of my assault team on the right-hand flank. As you can see there, I ran dark side 8 inches. That way I can take cover within that crater. So that way my opponent suffers -1 to hit on dark side. They open up on him. And then as you can see there, I move both Mondo and DJ 4 inches up forwards. That way they could also put suppressive fire if they get the chance to do so. So that's moving here on the right-hand side of the board. Alright, so here's a close-up of the center portion of the board. As you see there, I put Scorpion, Lemon Head, as well as Zero on Overwatch as well. So I got a little Overwatch counter for those guys. So that way they can open up fire whenever they see anything kind of hairy movement going on for my opponent's turn as well. So that's movement for this side of the board. Moving phase from my Jews was actually pretty exciting. As you can see here on the right-hand side, VR decides to charge into Johnny the Boy, who's that Jew was located there on the ground, which is kind of awesome for me because in close combat phase, he'll basically be able to finish that guy off, put him out of action, and then do a 2-inch follow-up to Clunk as well and also hurt him at the same time. And as you can see on the right-hand side, both Tetsuo as well as Reptile, they both charge into No Face the Heavy, so they don't have to put the smackdown on that poor fool. So we'll move it out of the way. We go directly into the close combat phase because there really is no shooting going on. In the close combat phase, it goes absolutely spectacular. VR manages to finish off Johnny the Boy and takes him out of action, moves up his 2-inch follow-up to impact right into Clunk, so that way you can do exactly the same thing to him. Luckily for me too, Tetsuo's superior close combat fighting ability with the various skills that he had was able to put the smackdown on No Face and drop him dead as well, so that guy is now out of action. So with 2 gang members out of action, my opponent has to start taking some bottle roll tests during his recovery phase. So yeah, that makes up close combat on this part, and so with that we go on to turn number 3 for the jury. Alright, so for turn number 3 for the iron sights, as you can see here, he moves up Starbuck to the window so that we can start putting some suppressive fire down onto my members of the jury as well. I use my Overwatch token for Sub-Zero, who's in the very far right-hand corner of the Metropolitan Police Precinct. So he snaps off his fire at Starbuck. Unfortunate for me, however, I totally missed because of -1 to hit, as well as the partial cover made it almost impossible for me to hit that target. So because of that, Starbuck gets away without being shot at this part. So that's what we hear on this type of the board. My opponent then takes Kundalini, who's his ganger armed with the axe, as well as the last pistol. He runs him out of the office building and towards the West Super Red as well to get some support for Mudguts because my dudes are planning on coming around the corner there and start putting on some pain for those guys. So he moves that. At the same time that he moves that, I roll for Scorpion's Overwatch ability to shoot at him. Unfortunately for me, I missed the shot because once again, you get a -1 to hit when it comes to your Overwatch rolls. So because of that, he was unable to secure a hit against Kundalini, so Kundalini was able to make it to the West Super Red without being shot at that part, so that was kind of sad. And during the movement phase, Fresh Prince Bel-Air took the Knight Rider, which is his heavy stubber wielding heavy, and runs him up 2 floors to get to the very top of that office building, so that way he can start selling some automatic fire during his next turn. But unfortunately for him, I use my Overwatch token for Lemon Head, who's on the very far left-hand corner of the office building, and he manages to get a shot off and manages to hit as well as wound the Knight Rider. And just like last time, the guy gets shot, he fails his initiative roll, and he falls, hits the next floor again, takes another strength 3 hit, and he's wounded again. So he just gets knocked down, back down to the next floor. So no luck for the Knight Rider this part. Oh, that was just hilarious in my opinion. Luckily for my opponent, he rolls on the recovery table, he rolls a 1, so the Knight Rider gets back on his feet again, and so now he has a 2 on his red die to represent the fact that he's got -2 for both his weapon skill and his ballistic skill. But the pain is for the Knight Rider's not over yet, because I decided to use Stubborn to open up with his stub gun through the 2nd floor there in the building to hit the heavy again. And the dice gods do not like the Knight Rider. I managed to put a wound on him, so he falls to the ground again. He has to take an initiative test. And the poor guy fails the initiative test and he falls down again and takes another wound. The poor guy. This is the 2nd time he got shot off the 3rd floor, and the guy is just basically wounded me on all belief. So it was just, oh man, I feel so bad for my opponent, but at the same time, though, it was just absolutely hilarious to watch that happen, to see his heavy get shot off the 3rd floor for a 2nd time in a row again. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. Unfortunately for my opponent, the Knight Rider had to roll up on the recovery table. He rolled like a 4, so now he's just down right now. So he's not out of action yet. Hasn't suffered a flush when he's just down for the count. During the movement phase, however, he decides to move up the toe cutter. As you can see there on the far right-hand side, the toe cutter kind of angles himself inside the office building door so that way he can open up with his bolter onto Darkseid. And he also runs Bubba Zanetti, his flamer-wielding heavy. He runs him to the left-hand side of the office building as well, so that way he can start cutting open with the flamer on Darkseid. So that makes it movement from my opponent's turn on this side of the board. And the very last bit of movement, as you can see there, he moves Mudguts away from the far corner of the West Supra and deeper into behind the building to take cover. So that way, when my Jews run around the corner, they get into like a reverse slope defense type situation and can blast as they get around the corner. So that makes a movement from my opponent's movement phase. And with that being done, we go directly onto the shooting phase. In the shooting phase, Darkseid gets off lucky. It's ridiculous how lucky he was that he didn't get killed. Unfortunately for my opponent, his flamer can open up with his flamer onto my Darkseid character because he ran. But, however, the toe cutter does open up with his bolt gun. He manages to hit him because he's within short range. So that part kind of sucked. My opponent rolled a 1, however, to wound. So because of that, Darkseid does not get hit, doesn't get wounded, but he is pinned. So unfortunately for him, he's still stuck there. He's now within 2 inches of his fellow gang member, so he won't be able to move or do anything next turn for him. But so yeah, Darkseid is pretty much effectively pinned inside that crater. So with shooting done, we move on directly to the close combat phase. And in the close combat phase, as everyone basically saw, VR managed to finish off Clunk as well because he was already down and out of action. So VR just basically just ran up, popped a shot off on the guy, and just continued moving on. So that ended the combat phase for this one. So as you can see here during the recovery phase, he's already lost 4 of his gang members already. He lost Diabando as well as Clunk. He also lost No Face the Flamer. He also lost his other Juve, Johnny the Boy, as well. So when it's all said and done, he rolls up for his last member who was basically down, and that is the Knight Rider. That was the poor heavy who got shot off the building another time again, which is kind of funny for me. But he had to roll for his recovery phase for that one. And unfortunately for Fresh Prince Bel-Air, when he rolled on the recovery table, he rolled a 1, which meant that the Knight Rider took another flesh wound. So because of that, it dropped his weapon skill as well as his ballistic skill down to 0. And because he has 0 weapon skill and ballistic skill, he can't really fight, so that character automatically goes out of action. And it's at this point in the game that my opponent realized that half his guys are now out of action, and they got to take rolls in the serious injury chart, and he decides to voluntarily bottle out for this one. And here's the final shot of the battlefield, ladies and gentlemen. My opponent, Fresh Prince Bel-Air, bottles out, so here's the end of the game. As you can see that all the members of the jury are still on the table. Not a single wound has been suffered from any of my gang members, and I managed to wipe out half his gang, my opponent's gang, in the process and put him out of action. So this was a sweeping victory for yours truly. And with that, we go on to the after-action report for this one because this game is now over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright folks, now it's time for the after-action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do well. And this is also the part where we talk about the post-game for all the gangs that took place in this battle. So this is the after-action report for the Tales from the Underhive battle report number 5. It was a gang fight scenario between my jury of House Cawdor versus Fresh Prince Bel-Air of the Iron Sights with House Orlock. So let's talk about the post-game for the jury, who were the winners in this battle report. For the injuries, we didn't really suffer any injuries at all because my opponent was unable to inflict any wounds on my guys, so because they did pretty well for themselves. And when it came to advancements, a few of my guys actually got some pretty good advancements because of the wounds that they inflicted in close combat as well as with shooting. And we also got, because we got an extra D6 for surviving the battle report as well. So let's start off with Riptor. Riptor, he gained plus 10 experience points, and because of that, he earned himself the new Fixer Techno skill, so that was pretty nice. So whenever I gotta buy something, I could renegotiate the price on that part, so that was pretty nice. Limit Hit gained a +1 for his ballistic skill, and Scorpion gained +1 for his weapon skill. DJ gained a +1 for his strength, and VR gained a +1 for his strength as well for this battle report. Johnny, my Juve, he got the Deflect Combat skill, while Tetsuo, with his experience levels, got promoted to a Ganger, so now I have a new Ganger within my army. He also gained the Quick-Witted Agility skill as well for his next advancement. And then finally, Reptile gained the Counterattack Combat skill. In terms of income, we worked my territories and did 65 credits, which we combined from my stash equaled up with 60 credits. And because my opponent suffered twice as many losses as I did, he had to lose one of his territories. We rolled the dice to figure out which one, and I gained the Slag territory from the Iron Sights. So now my gang has 7 different territories under its command. For the merchant phase, I basically looked at the weapons that we had. Basically, we had a needle rifle as well as some photo lenses that were available for purchase, but I didn't care for those items, so I decided to buy that. What I decided to do instead, however, was to hire a Ratskin Scout And the reason why is because one of his abilities, it gives you a +1 or -1 on the roll for the scenario table, and since my gang rating is so high now, it's good to have that around so that way I can kind of make an adjustment to get to what kind of scenario I want to be more in my favor. So my Ratskin Scout, his name is Red Harvest. He is armed with a knife as well as a maul. He's got a blind snake pouch and equipped with a hunting rifle. He also has the evade and sneak up skills, which is kind of nice as well. I also purchased frag grenades for both Tetsuo and Reptile, and I also got man stopper rounds for Darkseid, so that way he has to stop running each battle report and actually start shooting. And so now my gang's new rating is at 1,913 points, with a record of 3 wins as well as 0 losses. For the Iron Sights, who unfortunately lost this battle for their injuries, the Night Runner suffered old battle wounds, so you have to roll now to see if he participates in the next battle or not. The Abondo unfortunately died for him, so all of his gear as well as him died off as well. Clunk made a full recovery, and Johnny the Boy earned the Bitter Enemy special rule, and now he hates VR of the Jury because that was the guy who put him down. So we'll be able to see what happens when these two guys face off each other once again. For advancements, Mudguts gained a +1 for his weapon skill, Clunk earned the Disarmed Combat skill, and Johnny the Boy got +1 for his weapon skill as well. For income, my opponent lost his slag territory to the jury because he lost so badly for his battle report, and he worked his territory and was able to gain 35 credits as well. But during the merchant phase, my opponent basically did one thing. He hired a new bounty hunter to kind of boost up his losses for his gang. That guy is called the Saracen. He is armed with both mesh armor, bolt gun, and a bolt pistol with laser sight. He also has a quick-witted skill as well as crack shot skill, so that guy's pretty deadly since if he captures anybody, he can sell for caps for credits and earn credits from my opponent. His new gang rating now is at 1,638 points. His record is 1 win as well as 2 losses. Luckily for me, my opponent decided not to rat me out to the guilders, so everything is good and peachy for that part. Once again, I'm having a blast making these battle reports. I'm having a good time making them. We're having a blast doing the different campaigns and seeing what happens to all our gang members as time goes on. So this pretty much wraps it up for Tales from the Underhive number 5. Please feel free to like, subscribe, comment, get your suggestions in there. You guys' suggestions and comments are making these battle reports even better, so let's just keep on rocking it. So with that being said, see you guys on the flip side.